Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A human is a combination of two things. The first thing is the body. It may be a strange thing for you to know that the first aspect of human personality, the aspect of human personality that was created as the first being, was the body itself. And when Almighty Allah had created the human body and shaped it and fashioned it and proportioned it in a beautiful manner, then He blew His spirit in that body. The soul or the spirit of Almighty Allah, from Almighty Allah's presence, that was caused to enter into human body afterwards. This spirit came from the presence of Almighty Allah, and the spirit in fact belongs to the presence of Almighty Allah. That's why it is a nur. The spirit is a light, and it possesses different dimensions of divine beauty of God. So Almighty Allah combined the both. This human body, made of dust, made of clay, made of matter, is something which has come from this material world. And our soul, or sometimes we say it is the spirit, our soul is something not belonging to this material world. This has come from the glorified divinity. So body, being representative of this material world, possesses the qualities of matter, possesses the propensities of this world, possesses characteristics of this material world. And it reflects different dimensions of this worldly life in it. Whereas the soul possesses different dimensions of the beauties of divinity in it. So when Almighty Allah combined the both into one being and named it the human. Al-Insan. Almighty Allah named this new creation which came into existence by the combination of the two. One thing from the material world and one thing from the world of divinity. One thing worldly, one thing heavenly. So new existence which was produced, which was created through this process of combination of the two, having two altogether different qualities, different characteristics, different interests, different kinds of inclinations, different priorities, different natures. Almighty Allah. And this is interesting thing. In the whole world of creation, human beings, the human is only one creation possessing a combination of two different and opposite characteristics together. This nature was not blessed upon the angels. Angels just possess the characteristics of light, the heavenly characteristic. The jinn, they possess only characteristics of fire. All other animals, plants, vegetable kingdom, animal kingdom, rocks, rivers, earth, vegetation, whatever you find in this world, exclusively possess the worldly characteristics. Almighty Allah has not made the beauty of divinity to reflect in these things. In the same way, Almighty Allah has not caused the characteristics of material world to reflect in the angels and the souls. But when He decided to create a new being in this world, a new creation, and He wanted to give it a title of Al-Insan, so He joined both kind of characteristics which were absolutely opposite, different and contradictory and conflicting in their nature, in their temperament, in their inclination, in their reality. So Almighty Allah combined these two opposite things in one being and give it the name of Insan. And the Insan, word Insan, has two roots. In the same way, its nature has also two roots. First root of the word, etymological root, the first root of the word Insan is Anasa. Anasa means to love someone. So this has been vested and placed in the nature of the world Insan to love someone. And the second root for the word Insan is Nasiya. Nasiya means to forget. Anasa means loving. Nasiya means forgetting. So these both natures, you see, Both natures are opposite in their character. Loving requires remembering. If you love someone, you will always remember it. And you can't forget it. And forgetting is negation of remembering. If you forget, you can't love the one whom you have forgot. If you forget anyone, it means there is no more remembrance or no more love or no more even realization of that person. They are again two opposite characters, but Almighty Allah joined them together in one world in the same way as He joined two opposite characteristics in one human. So man, Al-Insan, is from love and is from forgetting. A combination of loving and forgetting. So how these two things have been adjusted in one human being, in one creation. The reason is that Almighty Allah made insan a combination of two natures. Nature of worldliness and nature of heavenliness. And He made two roots for insan, loving and forgetting. Since He has combined the body and soul together, body and spirit, and this body has an inclination towards certain loves of this world. And Almighty Allah mentions different categories, different forms, different kinds of loves and inclinations in this world. Love of your family, love of your parent, love of your children, love of your wealth, love of your job, love of your beautiful residence, love of your the other desires of this world. Properties and power and respect and honor, to be recognized, recognition, all these are the things which a man loves. So this is one aspect of loving. Body loves these things. Body wants to become closer to these things. Body wants to live nearer to these things. Body doesn't tolerate distance from these things. And the other reality which was combined to body is the soul. Soul has come from the heavens, from the world of divinity. So soul has its own priorities of love. Soul loves zikr of Allah. Soul loves remembrance of Allah. Soul loves worship of Allah. Soul loves beauty of Allah. Soul loves proximity of Allah. Soul loves nearness to Allah. Soul loves reverence to Allah of Almighty Allah. Soul loves obedience to Allah. Soul loves submission to Allah. Soul loves to surrender everything for Allah. So soul have different kind of loves and inclination and priorities. Body has different kinds of loves, inclination and priorities. So Almighty Allah has put both together with opposite characteristics. So when the priorities of body becomes dominant, the priorities of body becomes dominant over the priorities of soul, of priorities of spirit. So body starts loving world and forgetting Allah. This is how loving and forgetting come together. Both things work at the same time. When body and body's desires become dominant, so both things act together. When body's desires become dominant over the soul's desires, then body starts loving this world and forgetting the world closer to Almighty Allah. This is how the insan starts naseya, nisyan, and forgetting Almighty Allah's remembrance. When soul becomes powerful and the priorities and the desires of soul, they become predominant over the desires of body and characteristics of body. When soul becomes powerful, it starts loving Allah and forgetting world. So Almighty Allah created insan as the best of the being. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. But send it to the lowest of the low. Asfala safilin. And this world was created and is created, or we can say we were sent to this world for a trial, for a test. Having both loves together in us, then Almighty Allah puts humans in trial. What kind of love is going to dominate this person? Whether the body's loves are going to become dominant and he forgets me, or soul's love becomes dominant and it forgets the worldly lusts and remembers me. And there is a center in the whole body where two things combine, and that is known as heart. Heart, its apparent position, external position, is being part of the world, and its internal condition is a part of the divine world, Almighty. So its internal focal point is connected with the divinity, and its external body, heart, is connected with this world. So here at this place, there is a place for chance and opportunity for both, whichever may become dominant. And zikr, the word zikr, fazkurullah, which you have done, zikr also means remembrance. Remembrance. So remembrance is the treatment of forgetting. When you start do zikr of Almighty Allah, you start remembering Him. It means you are doing an effort to reunite your soul to the love of Almighty Allah. The more you get connected to the lusts of this world, you get disconnected with the proximity and clearness of Almighty Allah. And the more you get disconnected with remembrance of Allah. It means getting disconnected with Almighty, from Almighty Allah. The more you disconnect yourself from there, you get connected, rather ruined in this lust of the world. So my dear sons, the piece of advice for today is that always get connected with the remembrance of Allah and try your best that the priorities of the soul, those priorities which lead you towards the nearness and closeness of Almighty Allah, may become dominant in your life. So use the world, but don't get used by the world. Live in this world, but don't get world live in your heart. Your heart should be always ruled by Allah's love. Otherwise, you will be ruined. Either be ruled by Allah's love or be ruined in the lust of the world. Almighty Allah may always protect you from the devil. from evil, from the lusts, and from everything which takes you and takes us away from Almighty Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.